everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you haven't watched my videos previously, then my name's Frankie and welcome. And today's video is going to be about things I wish I knew before starting my IVF treatment. I did think this video might be quite a useful one for a few of you viewers that I do know are currently on treatment, or I do have a couple of subscribers that will be embarking on treatment this year. So I thought this would be quite handy for you guys, and perhaps you have stumbled across this video and you are considering going down the IVF route, and this might be something of interest to you guys. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that you would all say yes, yes, yes to every single one, but this was things that in hindsight Jake and I look back on and wish we'd been prepared for, I would say. And yet it's just our opinions, our point of view. If you haven't watched my video before, then as I said, my name's Frankie and I did 2 years of IVF and gave birth to our little girl who was a frozen embryo back in September last year. So and I am currently doing some videos, and I thought the IVF videos generally seem to be the ones that draw more people in. So there's obviously people out there looking for advice, as I did whilst I was on treatment. So I think it's important for me to do this video. So I'm just going to go straight into it. I have got a list here. Jake and I have been working on this all day. So I've been jotting notes, and then I've sat down with him this evening and asked him his opinion on some bits. So I've really put some thought into it. So I really do hope you guys find it of some use. And yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing I wish we'd been told or prepared for is that we should have taken some time out as a couple before treatment, because it really did test us as a couple. And we actually said tonight, in hindsight, we would have probably gone on holiday somewhere just ourselves. And, you know, you can't change things now, but things were tough for us, especially whilst I was going through treatment with my eggs and taking the hormone treatment for that current time, thinking I was going to a fresh cycle. And for the pure fact that actually we weren't successful in our first round, and we weren't successful in a few rounds. And I wish that we had taken a break beforehand, because it was a tough 2 years and we hadn't really got to do much in between those 2 years and between cycles, because our thing was to just get on to the next cycle. So definitely, if you do have the opportunity before getting onto treatment, even if it's a weekend away, just you two, not thinking about the future, not thinking about what treatment, what you've got coming ahead of you, just enjoy yourselves as a couple. Definitely highly recommend that. So also, we wished that somebody had explained the different scenarios and different cycles to us before going on treatment. So this is definitely something, if your clinic doesn't explain to you before treatment, please do research it. But we came across a few sort of stumbles during our treatment, and for me, I found them extremely tough, because I wasn't actually doing my research until that scenario had been hit to us, and then I'd go home and research it. So for me, I think it caused a lot of stress and anxiety and a lot of upset as well during clinics, appointments and stuff. So such things as I did actually have my fresh cycle cancelled due to I was at a high risk of overstimulating, and for me, I didn't really understand about them cancelling the fresh and freezing my embryos. My initial question was, how long have I got to wait for them to be frozen? And it just seemed forever that I had to wait till I could start my frozen cycle. And actually now we've been sort of surrounded around the IVF world, shall we say, for a few years. It's actually extremely common, almost I would say at 50%, that you find that 50% of couples that do IVF are doing frozen transfers. So it's really, really, like, I was about to say popular, but it's not popular. But it is actually. Some people are now opting to go into a frozen cycle, but it is quite a common scenario to occur. Also, I actually made the decision to cancel one of my cycles because I felt very unwell on the medication. But I learnt that over time, that I did have the ability that if things weren't going right, if I didn't feel right, we could stop, give myself a few weeks break and start again. But initially when I'd started treatment, that's not something I would have even considered because I wouldn't have known that I could do that. So definitely look up your different cycles. Jake said that he would also put a point that partners or husbands or boyfriends, girlfriends, anybody that is joining the cycle with the person who is physically going through the IVF treatment should be prepared and should be as informed. He felt he wasn't fully prepared for what we were going through, and he had done a lot of research, as I had, but he said nothing prepared him for the amount of medication that arrived here when it got delivered. Nothing prepared him for the hormonal ride that he would go through with me. And it obviously is as important for the person that's supporting you to be fully prepared as you are to go through treatment. So definitely make sure that you try and bring your partners along to any appointments possible. If you are going through IVF treatment on your own, but you have your mum there to support you, or a sister or a friend, let them come along as well and let them ask questions to your appointments, because it all helps to support you and helps to make for a steadier cycle. Another thing that's a very good key point is have a diary or a calendar that you can jot things down in to hand to keep track of all your medications and of all your appointments. When you get onto treatment, there is so many variations. They chop and change your medication so much through a cycle. I also then at one point in my frozen cycle was being called back every other day for scans to check for my lining thickness. So I did end up printing off almost like an online calendar that had big square boxes, and I could literally write down which injection, which tablet if I needed to take it, and jot down a time if I had a scan booked in. So definitely have something that's to hand, that's practical, not a little diary with a small line, because you do actually fill in quite a lot of information to keep on track of things. And then you will get asked in clinics all the time, when did you first take this injection? And they're checking that their records tie up with what you've got. When they're, sometimes your thickness of your lining might not quite add up to what they were expecting. And we would pull my diary out and I'd be able to say, no, I definitely started injecting on this day. So definitely have a good sort of sensible diary or calendar to hand. Another thing is you perhaps might want to pre-warn your work that you may need to take time off at short notice. Now I know for me, I personally did let my manager know. She knew all about my treatment while I was working. Some people are a lot more private though, so I would say if you are going down the private route, to still try and warn work that you are going down something medical at the moment. You know, there are ways of saying it without saying it, and I can't think of the top of my head at the moment how you would, but just to warn them, because there were times where I would be at the clinic and they would say, we need you back tomorrow. And then I'd have to ring my boss and say, look, I'm going to have to work from home, but at least she understood that I was on treatment. But if, as I said, if you didn't want your boss knowing that you're on treatment, you might just want to warn them that you are going down a medical route and you might need to take last minute leave or even last minute holiday. Because yeah, cycles are there's no prediction with any of them. Also, Jake made a really, really valid point, and that is to educate your friends and family and don't assume they understand what you're going through as a couple. We got frustrated so many times with people who would just not understand. So they would moan that we wouldn't be going out one night, and it'd be like, I'm on treatment, I'm absolutely shattered, I have to inject at 8 p.m. on the dot tonight, but they don't understand. And then Jake said, in hindsight, now we've gone through it all, we perhaps should have said to them, because they knew we were on treatment, so we should have been able to say, look, I am going to be feeling unwell, I'm going to be feeling tired, I'm going to have a huge amount of appointments to keep up with, I'm going to have to juggle keeping work happy at the moment whilst on treatment. So if you pre-warn them before going on treatment, that takes a huge amount of pressure off you, both as a couple. So that is a really, really good key point, definitely. And the next one is that I wish we'd been told about support groups on social media. I used YouTube hugely to prepare me for going onto our IVF treatment, but I wish I'd looked on Facebook groups, which didn't actually come into my radar till I think just before I was pregnant with Eliza. And I'd been on treatment for about 1.5 years before then. And yeah, I'd wished that I'd had that support. I was fortunate I did have a friend who was on treatment similar time to me, so her and I would always WhatsApp each other or give each other a phone call, always sort of do a pep talk to each other before we were going in for appointments. So I was really fortunate, but some people aren't in that situation. So what I would say is definitely search through Facebook. I don't quite understand Twitter because I'm not on Twitter, but have a look around for these social media support groups, because you will then be reaching out to people going through the same situation as you guys. And sometimes when you've got real low days and you're on treatment, they really do lift spirits, just to know that somebody else understands what you're going through, and that some people perhaps might have a positive story for you guys when you think that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. Just hearing that positive story from somebody makes all the difference in the world. So definitely look for some support groups. Another thing I would say is prepare for tiredness. Whilst you're on the medication, you are going to be absolutely exhausted. So make sure you're prepared for some early nights. I would definitely say get as much rest as possible, because your hormones are going to be out of control. And sleep is the best way you can keep control of them. So definitely wish I'd known about the level of tiredness, really. I also put a point below that to say to not make any plans while on treatment, or try to avoid as many plans as possible. So as I mean, like going out for evenings out and stuff, because it's just sometimes it just was not physically possible. So yeah, try and keep that time to yourselves. Not saying that you've got to be at home all the time you're on treatment, but don't put yourself under pressure to go out for evenings out. And I mean, I work in London, so there's a huge social element after work. And I had originally committed to going out, and I wouldn't be drinking because I was on treatment, but I would say, yes, I'll come out for a meal, or I'd come out for after work drinks. And actually by 5:30, when I was clocking out, I was just ready to go home, put my pyjamas on, because I knew you'd have that element, or even the fact that you'd be out for the evening and rushing back to get back for 8 o'clock to inject that solid time. So yeah, try and keep that time free as possible. I wish also someone had pre-warned me how, I wouldn't say tough, I've written down how tough it was, but tough sounds really scary, and I don't want to scare anybody watching this video, but I would definitely say how challenging it was. That's probably the word I'd use, both mentally and physically. And yeah, it can get the better of you at times. So I would definitely say prepare as much as possible beforehand. Make sure you've got some pamper bits at home. I think, I mean, I am going back a couple of years, but I'm sure you can have baths while your eggs are growing. Don't quote me on that though, but I'm sure, I know like they don't like you having baths in early pregnancy or after treatment, but I think you're allowed baths whilst you're injecting and stuff like that. Definitely take the time out just to have time to yourselves. I love reading, so I made sure I had a few good new books. As I said, I was having an early night, so I'd get in bed, read a good book, have an early night, and that really did make me feel better whilst on treatment. So yeah, definitely how challenging it was. Another one I would say is about hormones. Now, hormones is as in how the injections will make you feel, and as in I need to get my words out tonight. I know what I'm trying to say and it's really hard. So basically, when you take your tablets and your injections, which could be completely different range for different people, they have different effects on people. So I would have said, for me, I was very emotional, I was very tearful, I was extremely insecure. Now, a lady that I used to get on the trains with when I used to work up in town, she had IVF about 5 years before me, and she said that while she was on her injections and she had a fresh cycle, and she said that cetrotide made her horny, and she literally would pin her husband down at every opportunity. She said, which was quite out of character for her. So it really can send you one way or another. Now, cetrotide for me made me very tearful. So yeah, I suppose be prepared for any emotion to be chucked at you. I've literally said that 1 minute you could be sad, 1 minute you could be angry, the next minute happy, tired. Your moods will fluctuate throughout the day. So yeah, definitely wish I'd been pre-warned about that. My skin seemed to flare up whilst I was on injections, and the microgynon pill as well. I did get almost like sore, blistery type feelings on my legs. I felt when I'd get out the bath or shower that my legs were almost sore, like the skin was sore. So I would say buy some gentle products to have to use whilst you're on treatment. So non-bio products. I actually used like Fairy and all the stuff we use for Eliza now. The Lenore or the Comfort Pure for all my washing and my bedding. And I also used I think I used Simple Wash on my skin, and I did moisturise with a Simple moisturiser, and I think I actually just used the facial moisturiser on my legs. But my skin was extremely sensitive whilst on certain medication. So yeah, definitely I think prepare and have some gentle products at home. It's just while your hormones are just out of balance, I think your whole body is just like going crazy. But yeah, I did have to go out and rush to Tesco's and just say enough's enough. Got to change. I mean, we did use non-bio anyway, but I used Fairy that time, and as I said, Lenore Pure, and then it calmed things down, but I wish I'd had that to hand beforehand. And finally, my last point is to buy loose clothing, as you will feel very bloated and very uncomfortable. When I went in for my egg collection, I was so sore. As I said, I was at a high risk of overstimulating that I couldn't actually sit down in the waiting room before we went in to have the egg collection. And I remember wearing really baggy leggings. I say baggy, but a couple of sizes too big for me. And I had almost like big cotton knickers, which was almost like what I wore when I was heavily pregnant. So definitely have some loose clothing, maybe some night shirts for at home, you know, like the long t-shirts, and nothing's being tight and pushed on your tummy, because your tummy can swell if you are like me. I've got PCOS, so I was at a high risk of overstimulating. And I think they did end up getting 30 eggs out of me, of which 21 were viable. And then from what I recall, 8 made it to day 5 for the freeze. And I think 12 had fertilised, and then we lost a few along the way. So no, 16 I think. Now I'm thinking about it, I think it was 16. But as I said, that's a huge number. So if you do have PCOS, you are going to be more susceptible to the bloating and to just feeling very tender. I remember Jake rolling over one night and sort of his arm brushing across my stomach, and it was really sore. So yeah, I would definitely say get some loose clothing, some cotton breathable clothing as well, just to make you feel a little bit more comfortable. And those are my points, guys. I finally spat it all out, didn't I? Got my words in the muddle a couple of times. But it is hard to put myself back in that place, and to try and remember what we've been through and what would be useful to anyone that is about to go on treatment. And if you are about to go on treatment, then I would say I am giving you my absolute best wishes, and it, as much as it is the most challenging thing you will go through, it really does cement you as a person, if anything, and it does show you what you can really put yourself through. And yeah, just absolutely sending all my best wishes to you all, and I will speak to you later. Take care, guys. Bye.